The smell hit me first. Bitter and sharp, like fabric melting under heat. I turned the corner onto my driveway and froze. Patricia stood there, my wedding dress dangling from a hanger in one hand, a silver lighter in the other. Flames crawled up the white satin like hungry fingers. My breath caught in my throat. Neighbors stopped on the sidewalk, staring. Mrs. Kelly from next door covered her mouth with both hands. The dress I had searched for months to find was turning black, curling into ash. Patricia looked up at me, her face calm, almost satisfied. "You'll thank me later," she said, dropping the hanger onto the concrete. The fire kept burning. My hands trembled at my sides, but I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stared at her and whispered, "You'll regret this." My voice was steady, quieter than I expected. She smiled like she'd won something. But I wasn't broken. Not yet. I watched the flames die down, watched the lace turn to nothing. And somewhere deep inside, a different kind of fire started burning. One she couldn't see. One she wouldn't expect. I knelt beside the hanger. The metal was still warm. Black streaks stained the driveway where the dress had fallen. The lace sleeves I loved so much were gone, just ash now, blowing away in the wind. I picked up a piece of charred fabric and held it between my fingers. It crumbled. My chest felt tight, like someone was squeezing my ribs. I heard a car door slam. Logan, my fiancé, ran toward me, his face pale. "Maren, what happened?" he asked, looking from me to his mother. Patricia crossed her arms. "It was an accident," she said quickly. "The steamer broke. I was trying to press it for you." Logan looked confused. I stood up slowly, brushing ash from my hands. "She's lying," I said, my voice flat. Patricia's smile faded just a little. Logan stared at her, waiting for her to explain. She didn't. I turned and walked into the house, leaving them both standing there. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I just closed it quietly behind me. My hands were still shaking, but my mind was already working. She thought she'd ruined everything. She had no idea what was coming. I sat on my bed, staring at the pictures on my phone. There it was, the dress, hanging in the bridal shop window the day I found it. White satin with delicate lace sleeves, a flowing skirt that moved like water. I had cried when I tried it on. It was perfect. Now it was gone. My phone buzzed. "Tess, my best friend. I heard what happened. Are you okay?" I typed back slowly. "No. But I will be." She called immediately. "Don't cry," she said when I answered. "We'll fix this." I wasn't crying. My eyes were dry, burning, but no tears came. "I'm not crying," I told her. "I'm planning." Tess paused. "Planning what?" I looked at the burned fabric still sitting on my dresser. "She thinks she won," I said quietly. "But she just started something she can't finish." Tess knew me well enough not to argue. "What do you need?" she asked. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. "Everything," I said. And I meant it. Patricia had made a mistake. A big one. She thought I'd break. Instead, she gave me a reason to fight. The next morning, I heard Patricia on the phone. She was in the living room, speaking loud enough for me to hear from the hallway. "It was an accident," she said, her voice sweet and fake. "The steamer sparked, and the dress caught fire." Poor Maren was devastated. I pressed record on my phone and held it near the doorway. "Honestly," Patricia continued, "I think it's a blessing. That dress was too simple for our family. Logan deserves better." She laughed, light and careless. My stomach twisted. I kept recording. She went on for another 2 minutes, bragging about how I'd have to settle for something cheaper now. When she finally hung up, I stopped the recording and saved it. My hands were steady. The truth felt like fire in my chest, hot and ready to burn, but I didn't let it show. Patricia thought she was clever. She thought no one would believe me. But I had proof now. And I wasn't going to waste it. I slipped my phone into my pocket and walked into the kitchen. Patricia smiled at me. I smiled back. Let her think she was safe. I thought back to the first time Patricia made me feel small. It was 6 months ago, at a family dinner. She'd looked at my dress and said, "That color washes you out, dear. You should wear something brighter." Logan had laughed it off. "Mom, she looks fine." But Patricia kept going. "And maybe lose a few pounds before the wedding photos. You want to look your best, don't you?" Everyone went quiet. I forced a smile and nodded. Logan squeezed my hand under the table but said nothing. That was the pattern. She'd say something cruel, and he'd stay silent. After dinner, I told him it hurt. "She doesn't mean it," he said. "She's just protective." I wanted to believe him. But it kept happening. She criticized my cooking, my job, my friends. She told me the wedding dress I picked was too plain for the family. I tried to let it go. I tried to be patient. But now, standing in my kitchen with a burned dress in the trash and her lies still echoing in my ears, I realized something. I wasn't going to let anything go anymore. Not this time. She'd pushed too far. Later that afternoon, Patricia showed up at my door with a plate of cookies. Her smile was soft, apologetic. "Maren, sweetheart," she said, "I feel terrible about what happened. Let's start fresh." I looked at the cookies, then at her face. She was acting. I could see it in her eyes. "Not today, Patricia," I said calmly. She blinked, surprised. "I just want to help," she insisted, stepping closer. I held the door firmly. "I know," I said. "But I don't need your help right now." Her smile tightened. "You're not going to hold this against me forever, are you?" I tilted my head slightly. "I'm not holding anything against you," I said. "I'm just not ready to talk yet." She opened her mouth to argue, but I closed the door gently before she could. I locked it and leaned against the wood, listening to her footsteps fade down the walkway. My heart pounded, but I felt strong. She expected me to forgive her quickly, to move on like nothing happened. But I wasn't going to make this easy for her. Not anymore. Tess arrived an hour later with coffee and a plan. "My aunt owns a tailor shop," she said, sitting across from me at the kitchen table. "She's a miracle worker. If anyone can help, it's her." I stirred my coffee slowly. "The dress is gone, Tess. There's nothing left to fix." Tess leaned forward. "Then we make something new. Something better." I looked up at her. "In 3 days?" She nodded. "We won't know unless we try." I thought about it. The idea of walking down the aisle without a dress made my chest ache. But the idea of giving up made it worse. "Okay," I said finally. "Let's go." We drove to the tailor shop that same afternoon. It was tucked between a bakery and a flower shop, small but cozy. A bell chimed when we walked in. The smell of fabric and lavender filled the air. A woman with silver hair and kind eyes looked up from her sewing machine. "You must be Maren," she said, smiling. Tess had already called ahead. I nodded. "I need a miracle," I said quietly. She stood and walked over to me. "Then let's get started." Mrs. Asha, the tailor, examined the burned remains of my dress. I'd brought what was left in a plastic bag. She spread the pieces out on her work table, her fingers gentle as she touched the charred lace. "This was beautiful," she said softly. I swallowed hard. "I know." She looked up at me. "We can't fix this one," she said. "But we can make something new. Something better." I felt a lump in my throat. "I don't have much time." "The wedding is in 3 days." Mrs. Asha nodded. "I know. It will take long hours, but I'll do it." She pulled out sketches and fabric samples, showing me options. I tried to focus, but my mind kept drifting. How could I replace the dress I'd loved so much? How could anything be better? Trust me, Mrs. Asha said, placing a hand on mine. You'll walk down that aisle, and you'll feel beautiful. I wanted to believe her. I nodded, blinking back tears. Okay, I whispered. Let's do it. She smiled and got to work. And for the first time since the fire, I felt a flicker of hope. That evening, Logan's father, William, called me. Maren, can we talk? He asked. It's important. I met him at a coffee shop near his house. He looked older than usual, tired. I heard what Patricia did, he said quietly. I'm sorry. I stirred my tea. She said it was an accident. William shook his head. It wasn't. I know my wife. He paused, choosing his words carefully. There's something you should know. Patricia once had a beautiful wedding dress. It belonged to Logan's grandmother. She told everyone it was lost years ago. I leaned forward. But it's not lost, is it? William looked me in the eye. No. She hid it. My heart started racing. Why? He sighed. Because she didn't want anyone else to wear it. She's possessive. Always has been. I sat back, processing this. Do you know where it is? William nodded slowly. In our attic. In an old wooden trunk. I felt something shift inside me. Can I see it? He smiled sadly. I was hoping you'd ask. The next morning, William took me to his house while Patricia was out. We climbed the narrow stairs to the attic. Dust floated in the sunlight coming through a small window. William pointed to a trunk in the corner. There, he said. I knelt down and opened it. Inside, folded carefully beneath layers of tissue paper, was the most beautiful vintage lace gown I'd ever seen. I gasped. The lace was delicate, intricate, like something from a dream. The fabric was ivory, soft and timeless. I lifted it gently, afraid it might fall apart. She told everyone it was gone, William said quietly. But she kept it hidden all these years. I ran my fingers over the lace, feeling the history in every stitch. This dress belonged to Logan's grandmother. It was family. And Patricia had locked it away, claiming it was lost. She didn't want anyone else to have it, I said, more to myself than to him. William nodded. But it's not hers to keep. I looked up at him. Can I borrow this? He smiled. It's yours now. Do with it what you will. I folded the dress carefully and held it close. This was it. This was my answer. I brought the vintage gown to Mrs. Asha the same day. She gasped when she saw it. This is exquisite, she said, spreading it out on her table. Where did you find this? I told her the story. She listened, nodding slowly. So she hid this away, burned your dress, and thought she'd won. Mrs. Asha smiled. Let's prove her wrong. We worked together, examining every inch of the gown. It had a few tears, some yellowing on the edges, but nothing we couldn't fix. Mrs. Asha decided to clean it, repair the lace, and add a modern touch to the bodice to make it fit me perfectly. This will take time, she warned. But it will be worth it. I watched her work, feeling my strength return with every stitch. The dress was coming back to life. And so was I. Tess stopped by later with food and encouragement. This is going to be legendary, she said, grinning. I smiled back. She tried to burn me down, I said quietly. But I'm still here. Tess raised her coffee cup. To rising from the ashes. I clinked my cup against hers. To rising stronger. That night, Logan came to see me. He looked exhausted, guilt written all over his face. Maren, I'm sorry, he said, sitting down across from me. I should have stopped her. I looked at him, waiting. I didn't think she'd actually do something like this, he continued. I knew she didn't like the dress, but burning it? That's insane. I nodded slowly. She did it on purpose, Logan. It wasn't an accident. He ran his hands through his hair. I know. My dad told me about the recording. I'd sent William a copy. He said he'd handle it. She's been lying to everyone, Logan said. The whole family believes her story. I stayed quiet. I confronted her, he added. She denied it at first. Then she got defensive. Said you were overreacting. I felt anger rise in my chest, but I pushed it down. What did you say? Logan met my eyes. I told her she's not welcome at the wedding unless she apologizes. Properly. It wasn't enough. But it was something. Thank you, I said quietly. He reached for my hand. I should have believed you sooner. I squeezed his hand. Just stand by me now. He nodded. Always. The next day, I called the insurance company. I'd taken photos of the burned dress, the lighter, and the scene. I'd also saved Patricia's voice recording. The agent listened carefully as I explained what happened. Do you have proof it was intentional? She asked. Yes, I said, sending over the files. There was a pause. We'll look into this, the agent said. If this was arson, even on a personal item, it's serious. I thanked her and hung up. Part of me felt guilty. But Patricia had crossed a line. She destroyed something valuable, lied about it, and expected no consequences. A few hours later, the agent called back. We've reviewed the evidence. Your claim is approved. We'll be contacting Mrs. Patricia Langford regarding restitution. My heart raced. What does that mean? It means she'll have to pay for the damages, the agent explained. And if she doesn't cooperate, we may pursue legal action. I thanked her again and sat down, processing everything. Patricia's story was falling apart. Piece by piece, the truth was coming out. And I didn't have to do anything but wait. Justice was happening on its own. Later that evening, Patricia posted in the family group chat. I'm heartbroken that Maren is making such drama over an accident. I only wanted to help. I stared at my phone, reading her message twice. The comments started rolling in. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all offering sympathy to Patricia. You're such a kind soul. Brides can be so sensitive. It was just a dress. My blood boiled. Then Logan's message appeared. It wasn't an accident. Here's the truth. He posted the recording of Patricia admitting the dress was too simple and that she was glad it burned. He posted the photos I'd taken. He posted the insurance report. The chat went silent. Then the messages started flooding in, but this time they were different. Patricia, is this true? You burned her dress on purpose? How could you do this? Patricia tried to defend herself. That recording is out of context. But it was too late. The truth was out. One by one, family members left her side. Within an hour, Patricia left the group chat. I put my phone down and exhaled slowly. Tess texted me. You didn't even have to say a word. Logan did it for you. I smiled. Sometimes the truth speaks for itself. It was the night before the wedding. I stood alone in my room, staring at the restored gown hanging by the window. The moonlight made the lace glow, soft and ethereal. Mrs. Asha had finished it that afternoon, her hands shaking with exhaustion but her smile bright. You're going to be breathtaking, she'd said. I ran my fingers over the fabric, feeling the delicate patterns beneath my touch. This dress had history. It had survived decades, hidden away by someone who wanted to keep it for herself. But now it was mine. Now it had a new story. I whispered into the quiet room, you tried to burn me down. But I'm still here. The words felt powerful, like a promise to myself. Tomorrow, I would walk down that aisle. Tomorrow, I would marry the man I loved. And tomorrow, Patricia would see exactly what she'd failed to destroy. I smiled, a real smile, and turned off the light. Tomorrow, everything would change. The morning sun poured through the windows as Tess helped me into the gown. The lace felt cool against my skin, delicate but strong. Mrs. Asha had added a small detail inside the bodice, a tiny phoenix stitched in gold thread, hidden where only I could see it. A symbol of rebirth, she'd said when she showed me. I touched it now, feeling its significance. Tess zipped up the back and stepped away, her eyes filling with tears. "Marin, you look." She couldn't finish. I turned to the mirror. The woman staring back at me was radiant. The vintage lace hugged my body perfectly, the ivory fabric glowing in the light. My hair was pinned up with soft curls framing my face. I looked like I'd stepped out of an old photograph, timeless and elegant. "I feel like myself again," I said softly. Tess hugged me carefully, trying not to wrinkle the dress. "You're going to take everyone's breath away." I smiled. Good. Because today wasn't just about marrying Logan. Today was about showing Patricia that she couldn't break me. Today was about walking into my future wearing something she would never forget. The church was filled with soft music and the smell of roses. Guests arrived in waves, filling the wooden pews. I peeked through a crack in the door, watching them settle in. Patricia sat near the front, her hands folded in her lap. She wore a tight smile, the kind that didn't reach her eyes. She looked nervous. Good. Logan stood at the altar, adjusting his tie. His father stood beside him, a hand on his shoulder, whispering something that made Logan smile. I felt a flutter in my chest. This was it. Tess squeezed my hand. "Ready?" I nodded. More than ready. The music shifted, signaling the start of the ceremony. My bridesmaids began their walk down the aisle. The guests stood, craning their necks to see. I took a deep breath, gripping my bouquet of white lilies. The doors would open soon. And when they did, everything would change. Patricia thought she'd ruined this day. She thought she'd taken away my happiness. But she'd only made me stronger. I whispered one last promise to myself, this is my moment. And no one can take it from me. The doors began to open. The music swelled, and I stepped into the light. Every head turned. The gasps were immediate, rippling through the crowd like a wave. I walked slowly, deliberately, letting them see. The vintage lace glowed under the soft church lights, the intricate patterns catching every ray of sun that streamed through the stained glass windows. I felt like I was floating. My father walked beside me, his arm steady under mine. He whispered, "You look just like your grandmother." I smiled, my eyes focused ahead. Logan's face lit up when he saw me. His mouth fell open slightly, and I saw his eyes glisten with tears. But my gaze shifted, just for a moment, to Patricia. Her jaw dropped. Her hands gripped the edge of the pew, her knuckles white. Her face went pale, her eyes wide with shock and something else, recognition. She knew this dress. She knew exactly where it came from. The whisper spread through the church. "Is that the grandmother's dress?" I thought it was lost. "She's wearing Patricia's mother-in-law's gown." I kept walking, head high, shoulders back. I didn't look at Patricia again. I didn't need to. I'd already won. I reached the altar, and Logan took my hands. His smile was wide, genuine, full of pride. "You're stunning," he whispered. I squeezed his hands. "Thank you." The pastor began speaking, but I barely heard him. My heart was too full, too loud in my chest. I glanced at the guests. Some were smiling, others wiping tears. William, Logan's father, had tears streaming down his face. He gave me a small nod, a silent message of approval. Patricia sat frozen, staring at the dress like it was a ghost. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She looked away when I caught her eye, pretending to adjust her purse. But I saw her hands trembling. Logan and I exchanged our vows. His voice was steady, strong. Mine was soft but sure. I promise to stand by you, I said, through fire and everything after. He smiled, understanding the weight of my words. When the pastor said, "You may kiss the bride," Logan leaned in and kissed me gently. The church erupted in applause. Patricia clapped too, but her smile was forced, her eyes hollow. I didn't care. This moment was mine, not hers. We turned and walked back down the aisle together, hand in hand. The dress swayed with every step, the lace catching the light. I felt powerful. I felt free. The reception was held in a garden behind the church. White lights hung from trees, and flowers bloomed everywhere. Soft music played as guests mingled, sipping champagne and laughing. I stood with Logan, greeting people, accepting congratulations. Everyone wanted to talk about the dress. It's breathtaking. Where did you find it? It's like something from a fairy tale. I smiled and thanked them, but I didn't tell the full story. Not yet. Patricia stood in the corner, isolated. A few people tried to talk to her, but the conversations were short, awkward. Word had spread about what she'd done. People knew. And they weren't on her side anymore. Tess appeared with 2 glasses of champagne. "You did it," she said, handing me one. I clinked my glass against hers. "We did it." Logan's father approached, pulling me into a gentle hug. "You honored the family today," he said quietly. "More than Patricia ever did." I felt tears prick my eyes, but I blinked them away. "Thank you for trusting me with the dress." He smiled. "It was always meant for someone like you." The night continued, filled with laughter and dancing. And through it all, I felt lighter than I had in months. When it came time for toasts, Logan stood first. He talked about love, about partnership, about overcoming challenges together. Then he raised his glass. "To Maren, the strongest woman I know." Everyone cheered. I stood next, my heart pounding. I lifted my glass and looked around the room. My eyes landed on Patricia, who stared down at her plate. "To love that survives fire," I said simply. The room went quiet for a moment, then erupted in applause. People cheered, not fully understanding but feeling the weight of my words. Patricia shifted in her seat, her face flushed. She forced a smile, but her eyes were full of regret. Good. Let her sit with it. Let her feel what she'd tried to destroy. Tess squeezed my hand under the table. "Perfect," she whispered. I sat down, feeling victorious. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't made a scene. I'd simply spoken my truth. And that was enough. Logan leaned over and kissed my cheek. "You're incredible," he said. I smiled. "I know. Because I did. I'd taken everything Patricia threw at me and turned it into something beautiful. I'd risen from the ashes. And I was just getting started." Later in the evening, Patricia approached me. The music was soft, and most guests were dancing or chatting by the bar. She walked slowly, her hands clasped in front of her. "Maren," she said quietly. I turned to face her. "Patricia." She looked down, avoiding my eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For everything." I studied her face. She looked smaller somehow, defeated. Part of me wanted to say it was okay, to smooth things over like I always had. But I didn't. "Thank you," I said simply. She looked up, surprised. "That's it?" I nodded. "That's it." She opened her mouth to say more, but I turned away, rejoining Logan on the dance floor. I heard her footsteps fade behind me. The silence between us hurt more than any words I could have said. And maybe that was the point. She'd spent years tearing me down with words. Now, my silence was louder than anything she'd ever said. Logan pulled me close as we swayed to the music. "You okay?" he asked. I rested my head on his shoulder. Better than okay. Because I was. I'd let go of the anger. I'd let go of the need for revenge. I'd simply moved forward. And that was the strongest thing I could do. A week after the wedding, I received a letter from the insurance company. Patricia had been required to pay for the original dress she destroyed. The claim had been settled. The money was deposited into my account. I stared at the number on the screen. It wasn't just about the money. It was about accountability. Patricia had tried to erase what she'd done, to pretend it never happened. But the world didn't work that way. Actions had consequences. Word spread through the family. People stopped seeing me as the poor bride and started calling me the woman who rose from the ashes. Tess sent me a text. "You're a legend." I laughed. I just wanted my wedding day back. But it had become more than that. It had become a story about strength, about not letting someone else define your happiness. Women reached out to me, strangers who'd heard the story. They told me about their own battles, their own moments of standing up. I realized something important. This wasn't just my story anymore. It was bigger than me. And maybe that was the real victory. Not the dress, not the apology, but the ripple effect of choosing to rise instead of fall. Months later, Logan and I danced in our new apartment. Boxes were still unpacked, but the space felt like home. The vintage lace gown hung carefully in a preservation box in our closet. I decided to keep it, not just for me, but for the future. Maybe one day, someone else would wear it. Maybe another woman would need a reminder that she could rise from the ashes too. Logan spun me around, laughing. "Remember when you said she'd regret it?" he asked. I smiled. "I meant it." He pulled me close. "You didn't just get married that day," he said. "You took your power back." I thought about his words. He was right. The fire hadn't destroyed me. It had revealed who I really was. Someone who wouldn't break. Someone who wouldn't bow. Someone who could turn pain into strength. "She burned my dress," I said softly, looking up at the ceiling. "But not my spirit." Logan kissed my forehead. "And that's why I love you." We danced in the dim light of our living room, surrounded by unpacked boxes and dreams for the future. The past was behind us. The fire was out. But the phoenix inside me? She was just getting started. I stood on our balcony that night, looking out at the city lights. The air was cool, the sky full of stars. Tess called. "How's married life?" she asked. "Perfect," I said, and I meant it. We talked about everything, work, plans, the future. Then she said, "You know what I'm most proud of?" "What?" "That you didn't let her win." I smiled. She never had a chance. Because that was the truth. Patricia thought burning my dress would break me. She thought it would ruin my wedding, my happiness, my confidence. But all it did was show me how strong I really was. I'd walked down that aisle in a dress she tried to hide, in a dress that symbolized everything she couldn't control. I'd stood tall, head high, and claimed my moment. As I hung up the phone and went back inside, I glanced at the preserved gown one last time. It wasn't just fabric and lace anymore. It was proof. Proof that fire doesn't always destroy. Sometimes, it transforms. Sometimes, it makes you stronger. Patricia had tried to burn my happiness. But I walked into my future wearing something she would never forget. And I would never forget either. Not the fire. Not the fear. But most importantly, not the strength I found in the ashes.